help shape our next signature event. Survey results overwhelmingly showed that people they wanted a unique and nature-focused experience for that event. So the event featured interactive nature experiences, educational activities, entertainment, and then opportunities for families to explore Trollwood Park after dark. The community response and strong attendance really made the event an overwhelming success, and I think was just a great demonstration of the value of engaging the public. Yeah. I know the pictures are fun to see. So the next update is another example of a collaboration and engagement. It's the Little Free Library partnership with the Girl Scouts. So we are partnering with the Girl Scouts on a community initiative to install 10 little free libraries throughout the park system. The Girl Scouts approached us with the idea, and then staff started a community engagement survey asking the community which parks they would like to see those libraries. And the results were Lindenwood, Elephant, Row Farm, Mickelson, Brunsdale, Eagle Point, Trollwood, Roosevelt, Friendship Park, and Urban Plains. So those will be the locations. The Girl Scouts began putting the little free libraries together last weekend, and then Park District staff will help and assist with the installation over the next coming months.
Anybody else vote? I voted.
Yay! So just a thank you to our community relations and events team for the community engagement work and certainly the partnership.
So just to clarify, this little free library is like you see them around town where you put in a book and you take out a book type of?
Yep,
Okay.
correct. I mean, I think just another great way to, focus on literacy and engaging people in reading.
Awesome.
Will the Girl Scouts supply the books, or?
Yeah, and I think we're also asking community members as they go by to, if they grab a book, to replace it with one of their books.
Awesome.
All right, I have a very brief update on golf tonight. We, in 2025, had a record-setting year for both rounds and revenue, and we are on track to surpass those results in 26. The weather has been great, and interest has been really strong. So through August 9th, rounds totaled over 110,000, which is over 2,000 more rounds the same period last year. Increased play also has contributed really to strong revenue growth. The greens fees revenues are up more than $140,000 to the same point last year, and cart revenue is up more than $115,000. And also, with the Park District now owning all of the merchandise in the golf shops, we have brought in close to $250,000 year to date compared to just over $75,000 last year. So again, some of the changes that have been implemented, we are now starting to see just our overall operations improving. And then, again, the golf courses look great. Now the areas that don't have irrigation are starting to turn just with how dry the weather is outside. So a big shout out to our golf teams for the great work this season. And then in November, we'll invite the entire golf team in to do a more thorough update and overview and recap of the season. All right, moving into pools. Unfortunately, we are nearing the end of the outdoor pool season at many of our outdoor pools. So the Madison Roger Gress Northside Pool and the Southwest Recreational Pool will close for the season on Friday, August 21st. But the good news is that our team, Isabel and Dave, have done a great job of twisting some arms and recruiting staff to stay on. So we're able to extend the season at both the Davies Pool and the Island Park Pool. All of the hours will be posted on our website, but we'll be able to keep the Davies Pool open really through Labor Day weekend, and the same with Island Park. And the Island Park Pool will close during the week on August 25th. But then on those weekend hours, it'll be open from 12 to 7. All right, and then just the last update that I have is another community engagement work that we're doing, and it's on replacing 2 playgrounds on the north side of Fargo. So we will be doing the engagement. It has already started on our site, and looking at replacing at parks 1, 2, and 3 and Cannon Park, as I said, on the north side. The survey is open until August 31st, and really what we're asking for the community's input on is, what they want to see in that park. Is it just more open green space? Is it your traditional playground equipment, non-traditional playground equipment, or more interactive art displays? Both of those parks they're not large parks, they're smaller parks. So we thought this was a really great opportunity to really engage and find out if people want to see something different in those 2 locations. And those are the updates I have tonight, unless anyone has any questions.
So you mentioned, and I was going to ask this out of the blue, but what are we seeing any deleterious effects to the drought and the dryness and all of that stuff? Is it having an impact?
Overall, Jerry, Commissioner Rosted, throughout the park system or mainly golf?
Throughout the park system.
Yeah, I think all of the areas that are not irrigated are certainly starting to turn pretty yellow. I do believe that the teams are still out mowing. Yeah. We definitely need the rain.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Let's move on to item 3, approval of Covey Ranch Developers Agreement. Tyler Kirchner presenting. What? Uh-oh.
Read quick.
There we go.
You're up.
You're up.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Gunkelman. Tonight for you is the approval or consideration for approval for the Covey Ranch Developers Agreement. Next slide, please. So this project really kind of started for me back in 2020. It's about a 110-acre parcel. Looking at the vicinity map, just to get you kind of located here. On the right side, we got the Fargo Park Sports Center. From north to south, we got 52nd Avenue, 64th, and 76 is on the bottom. Interstate I-29 is on the right side of the page. 45th is right down the middle, and you got 57th/Vets is on the left side. So here, what we want to just kind of illustrate here is where the 110 parcel acres of land is, and located in red here in Covey Ranch. What's really unique about this area is it's really a master planning effort that really started with the city of Fargo. We were asked to kind of participate with different stakeholders and landowners. What they wanted to do is reconsider how they handled stormwater in these 2,400 acres. And that's why you see the Southwest Regional Pond, and then a little bit area to the south of 64th. There's another kind of smaller capture, detention, retention areas. But the really unique piece of this was being on the front end of the planning. We were able to plan some of the conveyance systems, and then also be able to couple that with some trails, something that's very in high demand within our park system master plan, and something that we're hearing from our developers all across. So the great thing about this graphic, it really illustrates the kind of squiggly magenta lines when you go from the Fargo Park Sports Center west to Southwest Regional Pond, kind of down to the south to about the Lost Creek area, and then straight east and back up. It's about a 5K with really maybe 1 or 2 intersections that you would have to cross for a dedicated trail. So something that really speaks to the power of planning and getting out in front, partnering with the city of Fargo, and then also developers too for their support in this. So next slide, please. So this park, it was kind of just zoomed in on this, is about 6.31 acres. Amenities include a warming house / multi-purpose building, a park shelter, multi-purpose rink, parking lot, concrete trails, natural trails, open prairie green space, an opportunity for more public art and placemaking, as Susan talked about in our online engagement that we're doing through the playgrounds, but then also trailhead amenities. I guess the question you could ask is kind of how do we get to this? The first thing we kind of do how do we get to these elements? The first thing we kind of do is look internally. What are we hearing internally? What are we hearing externally from our people? But then we also really leaned on the park system master plan to help guide some of these amenities that we're introducing here. So what we heard, in my last 18 months or so with the park system master plan was unique placemaking and a lot more trails. And then I'll also double down on the unique. People are really looking for these unique different opportunities and parks throughout our district. So what we heard through the park system master plan, or through that process, they commissioned what's called a statistically valid survey. And through that, we heard what amenities that were most important to households were neighborhood parks, paved trails for bikes and pedestrians, natural trails, large community parks, paved trails within the actual parks, and then more natural trails. Part of that study also took a look at programming activities that were most important for different households. Special events were on that list. Adult fitness, wellness programs was on that list. Programs for seniors, and then more programs that were directed at nature and then environmental education. Similar to things like the Firefly event up at Trollwood. So that's what you really start to see kind of sprinkled in here. Those are kind of the guiding principles that we looked at through putting this together. And obviously, I want to say too, the conversations with the developer really help support that effort as well. But so what you start to see here from north to south, I can kind of go through the site with you. You see the parking lot, little entry feature, and then as you go south, there's a little plaza / location for some placemaking, a little art installment. To the right, there's a little house. That's our multi-purpose building / warming house. To the left of that, if you go back through the plaza space, a little bit of larger seating area, event area, similar a shelter like if you were to look at Urban Plains-ish. And then what we have on the south side of that is a little event lawn. If you kind of go back across the trail, a little multi-purpose rink, possibility for some pickleball courts or basketball courts, still kind of up in the air. And then as you go south to there, from there, open prairie field with some small little nodes for some impromptu kind of like seating areas or outdoor classrooms. Still working out some of the details on that, but cost is estimated at just under $3 million on this one. So back in February, we were in front of you with a payment in lieu agreement for Brookstone. A part of that effort was that they were gonna, because of the adjacency, they chose to do a payment in lieu for this, and their payment was about $420,000 that will offset the cost of this. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it was $240,000. And then on this through this developer's agreement, they were a little bit under on the land dedication, so they will also be financing about $420,000. And what that would leave us is about $2.3 million that would be special assessed to pay for the park. So from here, after this, if you so choose to move this forward, the developer is still working with the city of Fargo on their technical review. From that technical review, we'll go to city commission, and then eventually it'll be platted. After the plat, then you've been hearing a lot about our special assessment committee. From there, it'll go into that committee and kind of follow through there before we are estimating construction starting in about 2008 or 28, excuse me. So with that, I know I kind of went through really fast. If you guys have any questions, I'm certainly welcome to hear.
Tyler, this has been explained to me before, but can you explain payment in lieu of again, refresh my memory, how that works?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways that we look at it. One is adjacency. What we like to do is plan for a park within a 10-minute walk of everybody within the Fargo area. And so when there is someone that's within that 10-minute walk, what we do is contribute those payment in lieu dollars to the adjacent park. And so that's kind of one option. Another option is, when we're looking through the land dedication, there's a formula of how much land that we request from developers. And if they don't meet that land requirement and we feel like we're still providing the benefit, then we would offset that with payment in lieu dollars is basically. And it's,
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Tyler?
No, we discussed this you presented this at planning, and I mean, this is a really unique, neat park space. And I appreciate that you don't just take the cookie cutter plan and you say, okay, what else can we do? What can be different? What can be unique? What can we use for that part of town, but still be a park that's good for the neighborhood too. So thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Anybody else? Last call? Okay.
I will move to approve the Covey Ranch Developers Agreement as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, Jeff, pull the board.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Abzi,
Aye.
Commissioner Secor May,
Aye. Can you hear me? Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes, the approval passes. All right. Moving on to item number 4, Fargo Sports Center update. Kaylee Mork presenting. Coral? What did we say it was Coral?
Coral.
Okay, Coral. All right.
Well, good evening, commissioners. It's hard to believe that we've lived in this building long enough for me to say it's become tradition for me to attend the August board meeting to give an update on the sports center, kind of where we've been, where we're at currently, and where we're heading to as well. Tonight, I'm going to share a little bit again about usage in 2025 in a variety of different manners, our financial picture from 2025. I know you've been at the edge of your seat waiting for that. Kind of where we're at in 2026 right now, and then the things we have coming down the pipe. So wanted to start, in case some of you don't constantly comb the Sports Center website. Last fall, we actually, in partnership with Sanford and McGough, were able to capture a lot of footage from within the facility, and with a third-party entity, created kind of a tour of the Sports Center. A lot of people are curious about the building and don't get the opportunity to maybe set foot here before they might book a space. So we wanted to give them that opportunity. And so I thought it would be pertinent to share that with you all tonight. This is the finished product. Thank God. Okay.
On YouTube. Woo!
Yeah, so we're very excited about the finished product of that. Just again, Paul's been using this like crazy to help showcase the facility to local groups and those outside our community in the hopes that it gives them at least a taste of what the facility can do. That goes a lot faster than if we're walking a tour through the building for them to be able to experience it. A special thank you to Bryce and his team for setting everything up and making it look spiffy for the shoot. And then Brianna took the lion's share of the coordinating with the groups and user groups getting permissions to shoot during their time. So appreciate all the work that went into it. We're excited about that piece. So real quick, I'm just going to run through this slide. I know you've seen this before. However, I always like to reiterate with a facility of this magnitude, we understand that we serve a diverse population. And so we want to have a variety of ways that people can access the facility, no matter their income level or interest. So kind of our sliding scale that we use here is, again, the walking track is free based on the needs assessment study we did back in 2016. I think it is now 2017. I get the two mixed up. I'll get it someday. So that continues to be free. And again, if you recall last month, you cordially approved that for next year again, that the walking track could remain free to the public during our open hours. Then kind of the next level of accessibility is our open play, which is the $5 per person. Again, that's inclusive of sales tax. And then we have the punch card option for people who are going to be frequent flyers of any of our open play spaces. So the punch card and the $5 applies to open turf, tot time, pickup soccer, pickup basketball, open volleyball, pickleball, the playground, what have you. Everybody can use their punch card for all the different spaces in the building. Then kind of the next level is if people maybe want to ensure that there's enough space for their family or friends to participate, they can actually rent an hour of time themselves individually as private individuals. They don't have to be a part of a group, and they can do that right on our website. And that will continue once we make the transition over to Rec Track. Then kind of above that is they can participate in a park district program. Again, as you all know, we try to keep those fees and access to those programs very low for members of the community as well. So people can participate in a program that's being hosted by the park district at this facility. Then kind of on top of that becomes the external leagues or programs. So that's the Tri-City Soccer, Fargo Area Sports, Sanford Academies fall into that category of, a little bit more of the competitive recreational nature. And then the top layer and top tier of accessibility is the tournaments and special events. And we really have focused on that. We are not just a tournament facility. It's still the lion's share. But we see those special event type of things creeping up more and more as we go along. So that's our kind of sliding scale of access for the facility. So what happened in 2025? So if you recall, I still can't say it was our first full year of operation of the whole building because we didn't open phase 2 until January 9th, but it's close. So we're going to roll with it. So in 2025, where we landed at the end of the year is we offered more than 3,000 hours of park district programming. And I say we as in the rec department, they did everything when it came to those hours in the building. If we had to go out and rent that space at similar rates to what we have here elsewhere, if this building didn't exist, it would cost us $147,000. And that's using our average rental rate between prime and non-prime. So a lot of times what would happen there is we either would have higher costs associated with that, whereas here the rental is free because we own the building, or we just wouldn't offer that program in general. So it shows the power of this facility for our own programming. Of those rent hours, those 3,068 hours, 140 of those we considered adaptive in nature. So again, opportunities for all. Over the course of 2025, we offered more than 19,000 hours of open play opportunities. And again, if we were to go rent that, so again, people have access to that for $5. If we went and rented all of those hours, we would be over $818,000 for the year. But again, we give that access for $5 to people. And more than 26,000 people took part. Again, can't say those are unique individuals, but we had 26,000 admissions throughout the year in 2025. We had more than 68 different organizations rent almost 16,000 hours of time throughout our different spaces. That includes the rooms as well. And then we had 49 special events and tournaments in 2025. So that was the usage. So where did we land financially? Okay, go
Kaylee,
ahead.
Sorry. On that slide, what I really like to see is when you look at youth, adults, seniors, that you've got all categories of a lot of participation. I think a lot of people think of a building like this and go, oh, that's for kids. I don't have kids, or that's for athletes. And that's not necessarily the case, and that it hits all the ages of our community, which is great.
And that is really a credit to Kevin and the programming team for coming up with all the different types of activities for all the different ages in the building. So I'll be sure to pass that along to him. On the financial side, so as we predicted for 2025, we did have operating expenses in excess of our operating revenues. The positive part of that picture is that it was less of a gap than we had budgeted for. Again, if you recall, when we did our 2025 budget, we hadn't even opened this building yet. We were right about to open it. So it was still a more educated guess, but it was still slightly a guess on what we were going to see financially. So at the end of 2025, our operating revenues, and I want to make that distinction real quick. This is operating revenues and expenses, not debt service. So operating revenues came in at $2.46 million. Operating expenses came in at $3.14 million again. So our revenues were 10.5% more than we expected, and our expenses were 9% less than we had budgeted. So it closed that gap between revenues and expenses. So at the end of the day, we ended up being able to cover 78% of our operating expenses by the revenues that we brought in. And the breakout of that is 55% of that 78 were from user fees such as admissions, rentals, punch card sales, kind of specifically tied to those users walking through the door. Another 16% of that 78 is from our food and beverage revenue from Chad's crew, again, directly tied to the people walking through the doors of the building. And then 7% came from another miscellaneous group of sources, such as our vendor fees that we charge, the arcade games that TK loves, up on the second floor by the Iceplex, the sponsorship tied to those. So another 7% came from there. So that left us with about a 22% gap when everything was said and done between our revenues and expenses. And because we're curious, we went through the exercise of, okay, what does that really equate to for the general taxpayer, for the general person in our community? And what that boiled down to is to cover that 22% gap, the average tax contribution was $3.64 per $100,000 of someone's home value. If you do the math, if you have a $400,000 house, it's right around $15 for the year that it costs the taxpayer to help operate this facility on the Park District's behalf. I like to consider that a win. That's less than 2 cups of coffee from Starbucks in a whole year that people gave up potentially in order to help have a facility like this for our community. So we thought that was a pretty amazing number.
Well, and I think you also have to point out too, the revenue that we're bringing into the city, that's also a financial benefit to those taxpayers as well. So.
Yes, and I am patiently waiting for that number from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, or is helping us out, or Visit Fargo Moorhead, as they are called now, is helping us come to figure out what that number is too. So I'll have that one for you at a later date. So what does the usage look like? So in 2025, again, I want to caveat this at the beginning. We're considering the full year of 2025 and through Q2, so the end of June in 2026 with these numbers. So open play, you can see where we're sitting about half of what we ended the final year at. So as you all know, January through May are considered probably our craziest time of our year, and then it slows down for the summer considerably, and then the fall picks back up, but it's not quite the same as January through May. And so just doing we're at half, doesn't really tell the full story. So I did pull year over year. So on the slides, you see what the full year of 2025 was. But if we want to really compare apples to apples, through Q2 of 2025 or 2026 compared to 2025, our open play admission numbers are up 43% to where we were at the end of June as of last year. So if we continue our same trend or see the same numbers for the second part of the year coming up here, we'll surpass our numbers from last year. The playground, we're currently 2% above where we were at the same time last year. Again, I think the newness of the playground, people know what it's like. And so not as many people are coming as they maybe were right at the beginning of last year when we first opened, but it was still encouraging to see that we're still running 2% ahead of this time last year.
Well, and while we're celebrating, our golf course is doing so much better because the weather's been so beautiful. Things like our playground aren't going to do as well when people don't have a reason to come here because it's not cold or rainy or whatever else out. So
right. Yes. And that's a great segue into my open play numbers and hours for the next slide is what did we offer for open play opportunities? And so we're still overall 18% ahead of where we were at the same time last year of how many hours we're offering in our different spaces for that $5 admission fee to come in and enjoy the sports center. However, that ties in a little bit with we're doing really well on rentals. And so when we have more rentals, there isn't quite as much time for those open play opportunities. And so again, as everything here, it's a balancing act of making sure that we have the financial picture looking at, the accessibility piece looking at, our own programming that we're looking at when we're kind of arriving at where our final numbers are going to fall. So this is the breakout. Again, overall, we're about 18% year over year of what we're offering. And then you can kind of see all the orange are the different activities in the pie charts that we offer in the court spaces. The green is all the different types of open play activities we offer in the turf. The blue is all of our open ice, which again, that is significantly less than everywhere else just because we have most of the weekends and the evening hours taken up by ice rentals. And then open pickleball is the lion's share simply because we offer that. We've committed to offer that from 7 a.m. to 1 or open to 1 p.m. every day. So when you have 6 courts for that many hours a day, it adds up quickly.
there's a huge number difference on the open turf between those 2 years. Is that just from us getting more bookings and for programming per se, as opposed to the hours? Or
again, the 2026 numbers are through Q2 of this year, but yes, yep. So I don't know that we'll hit exactly at open turf. Open turf itself on the rentals, Joe, just to give you an idea, as we're running about even specifically on open turf time compared to our rentals compared to what we were last year. So we're expecting the open play opportunities to continue to increase on that side. And we're seeing
yeah, when I was saying discrepancy, I mean the pie width as opposed to the number difference. Like I mean, because you can see there's a difference, right? And and we're smaller filled on there. So I was just saying that it's open turf that it looks like is where part of that's coming from.
That might have been Coach Deutsch and his flag football.
We'll pass that along to Canva on their graph making abilities. It was. And again, one of the things we are seeing a trend is in the open play, and this is anecdotal. I don't have exact numbers. This is just through conversations with various people in the building, is that there are some people that used to come to open play, but then, I've been here on a Saturday morning and mid-morning, and there's not a piece of turf in the open turf time available. And so some groups we're seeing are shifting from coming to the open play to those individual rentals, just so they ensure that they have space. Okay, next slide. So the Park District programming hours, again, you can see 2025, the full year, and then 2026. So right now, we are running about 89% increase year over year to where we were and what we're offering in Park District programming. A lot of that is attributed to the youth programming again. You can see we're already ahead of where we ended last year. And then close behind, that's making a big contribution to that also is the senior programming. Again, a testament to the work that Damien on the rec team is doing with the senior side and identifying those opportunities. And again, you can see the rentable value where we would be at right now in terms of expenditures for the park district if we had to go rent spaces elsewhere to offer those programs. Okay. On the hours rented, again, we're tracking very well. Year over year, we're about 6% ahead of where we were at this time last year. Again, you can kind of see the variances of where everything is sitting. Rooms are contributing significantly to that. The rooms right now, we're about 44% ahead of where we were last year at this time. And it varies depending on the type of room. Our multi-purpose rooms, the small rooms upstairs, those rentals, we've actually seen a decrease. But these rooms, the community rooms, we're sitting 75% year over year up from last year in rentals in this space. And we're seeing some of those multi-purpose room rentals migrate to the bigger spaces because they know they're available. And we have Allison on our team is kind of dedicated to activating these spaces as well.
Do we have like returning groups that continue to come back and rent spaces from us?
We do. We haven't run those calculations yet just to see who's on there, but you're jumping ahead to my very last piece on one of the initiatives that we're working on this year. I'll give you a little preview is tracking that to see what are one of our initiatives is specifically tied to how do we keep getting repeat bookings, make them happy while they're here. Next one.
Is there a distinction between
In
the
tournaments and special events. So Paul has been working very, very hard, as usual, on the different special events. So as of right now, we had 38 special events through Q2. 32 of those took place between January 1st and May 15th. So we were busy. That extra parking lot that you guys allowed us to build last year, it got used a lot of weekends this year and then some. So we were very excited. We had a number of weekends where we had not only 2 tournaments happening simultaneously, but we had 3. And I believe all but one of those events came back in 2026 from 2025. So that number I do know, and that was a national cheer and dance competition. That did not. So some more fun facts. I'm full of data. Is our average daily track users, again, this one is an ongoing challenge to really identify. This is our free space that we have in the facility. So what does that look like for people? So the first number, the 140 for 2025 and the 221 for 2026, that's if we take our full monthly average, like just year to date. However, we all know, as Joel or Commissioner Deutsch alluded to earlier, when it's nice outside, people aren't usually walking on the track. And so then we kind of also look at what we consider our peak season. So those cold weather months where you're just not going to be outside. And those would be January, February, March, and then November and December. April and October are kind of hit or miss, so we excluded those. So you can see year over year, we have seen quite a bit of an increase, especially during our peak season and the number of people coming out here. A lot of people love the natural light. Thank you to the design team that held on to those windows on the corners of the track. There's a lot of talk and excitement over that where it's bright in that space and makes them want to walk. And then on the other side, we've got our punch cards sold. Again, we're tracking behind where we were at this time last year, partially because we sold so many last year that people, I think, are still reaping the benefits of the purchases they made for stocking stuffers or birthdays last year to take advantage of the punch card discount. And then our playground birthday parties are currently right about where they were last year at this time. But again, less than where we ended the year at. A few other options. Again, we talked a lot about this as a sports center, but it's not just about sports. And so we feel it's important to continue to be intentional about coming up with ideas of how everybody can utilize the sports center. So the first one is we launched our scholarship piece for the park district, again, diverse income levels throughout the community. And since that launch at the end of May, we've had 8 scholarship applications. Again, we launched it during our slowest time of the year, the quietest time. So I'd only anticipate that that number is going to increase as we get nearer to the cold weather months. As we talked about earlier, 140 hours in 2025 of the hours that the programming team came up with were adaptive in nature. Thus far in 2026, we're already at 135 hours. So expecting again to beat all of these numbers, by the way, completely blow 2024's numbers out of the water. So we didn't even include them at this point. So again, we're already at 135 hours of adaptive programming through the Park District Recreation Department. We anticipate that will come in even higher by the end of the year. And again, we have a variety of interests that we want to cater to. So again, it's not just sports. So some of the programming that the Park District has offered is the Lego STEM class. Sewing was a huge hit. Intro to sewing and then intermediate sewing, I believe they offered as well, was very, very popular. And then we have all sorts of art programming. We very rarely get into the art rooms for other programming just because they're constantly being programmed. And so we're trying to be intentional about renting around those as well. And then just in general, I mean, we've had Cass County voting here. So again, working with what are those non-traditional use cases that we can see, the corporate trainings, the Christmas parties. We had a graduation party for the first time here in May. So we're continuing to look at and ideate ways that we can get outside of just the realm of sports. Again, sports are very important to us. I think that will always be the core of what we do, but it's how do we infill with other things as well. So what's coming up? So as I alluded to earlier, we do have some things that we're still working towards. And so the 4 items that you see in the boxes here are the 4 initiatives that our team came up with. So myself, Bryce, Allison, and Paul each lead an initiative team in our department. And then every member of our team participates on one of those initiative teams. So the 4 that we came up with this year, the first one, strengthening facility safety, security, emergency preparedness. Again, as we become more popular, more people know about us, it heightens our awareness of what if. And so this year, part of that initiative was we have the security company starting. They actually start next Monday here. So starting next Monday, we will have a uniformed security guard at our self desk in the evening hours and on the weekends to help, just be a visual reminder of sports can get emotional and there's an intense feeling and passion around them, and just reminding people, okay, let's just keep our heads about us. And then we also are working diligently on our emergency operations plan. So we have a framework plan that we've been using since we opened, but now really trying to make it the more robust, complete plan that we want to have for the building. The next one, advancing staff cross-training. Again, there's times where whether we still open the building and some of our staff can't make it in. And so how do we optimize the staff that we have within the facility, and really focusing on what positions can we cross-train in different areas so we can always ensure the maximum operability and guest experience when people are here. Increasing community awareness and off-peak engagement, again, really working towards those non-traditional use cases. This summer, we had Nike Wrestling was in our dryland rink that we had available for 10 days. Our event rooms, we really are focusing on that, which, as I mentioned, we've seen quite a bit of an increase in that space. And then, again, continuing to identify opportunities with both the recreation and events team of here's our quiet time. We've learned the personality of the building. Here's our quiet times. How can we continue to drive usage during those times? And then finally, our optimizing event hosting capacity and guest experience. So while the one above it really focuses on continuing to boost usage with groups that have never been here before, this one is really our focus on, okay, once we get them here, how do we ensure they have a great experience and get them to return? So really digging into staffing levels to make sure we're right staffed for different events. The guest experience when they're in the building and that feedback after the fact. And then finally, just because it's fun to know, we also have 8 more special events and tournaments that are coming up. So we'll land right now. We continue to get inquiries. We got one today about a collegiate basketball scrimmage being hosted here. And one of the fun things coming up is in October, MSUM will be hosting an official collegiate soccer game in our turf area during not our busy time. So in an afternoon on a Thursday. So continuing to look ahead at those. I've said a lot. One of the things I do want to end on is I've given you guys a lot of data, but the anecdotal pieces and the evidence of what's going on in this building and the impact that it can have on the community, I think are worth noting as well. There's been a time where a number of us have come across a couple of ladies, older ladies, having coffee and playing cards out next to our concession stand during the week. And they just said it's an opportunity for them to get out of their house and have that social time with one another. And they don't have to worry about cleaning their house if it's their time to host. And then one I just heard about in the last couple of days is the power of our partnership with Sanford, in that there was a Sanford stroke educator that was out here doing a tour with Allison about hosting a stroke walk out here. And she did. She hosted it out here. We didn't have to shut down the track, but she was out here. And while she was touring for that event, she noticed the SAIL program going on. And that got some questions raised from her on what that was. And so Allison, in the course of answering that, she also started talking to her about how our Active Age program, our Active Agers program, has the safety social, so more educational sessions for seniors. So through that, Allison connected her with Damien on the rec team who oversees the safety socials, and she came and spoke at one of our safety socials that we had in the last few months. And she reached out to Allison, and she were talking about something unrelated to that. And she let Allison know that she had a gal come and find her and seek her out at the hospital because she had attended that safety social. And not long after that, she was in a car with her husband, and she recognized the symptoms of the stroke that she'd learned about at the safety social. And she got him to the hospital. She convinced him to go. And he was having a stroke. And so the knowledge that she gleaned from something that took place here, but from the Park District and the partnership that we have with Sanford, I think is just, it truly shows the massive impact. It's not just health and wellness, it's lives that we're affecting in the positive way. So I just wanted to end on that just because I give you a lot of numbers and some of those stories are important to share as well. Any questions?
Very good, very comprehensive, Kaylee. Anybody have comments, questions?
I think you nailed it on the head, Kaylee, with we can't be everything to everyone, and partnerships and collaboration, that's how we can meet everybody's needs and do better and do more. And so I love the story you shared, and I think it's great about the partnerships and connecting people and seeing where Park District fits in and where we might need an outside partner to do the other part of it.
Before we opened, and I think most of the people at this table would attest to, there were some nights where we thought, gosh, are we going to be able to keep the lights on? I think the lights are on, and I think we're doing okay. We're doing more than okay. And I just want to commend you and your staff, because it doesn't happen without you guys being forward thinking and putting forth a lot of effort and thoughtful process on how do we get people in the building? How do we get them coming back? What else can we do that's not just your cookie cutter basic? And that doesn't happen just by accident. That's by you guys working hard together as a team, and all of our staff who participate in that, obviously recreation and everybody else. So it's a testament to you guys and what you've done over the last couple of years that has made this place be what we dreamt it would be. And so thank you to all of you guys.
I'll be sure to pass that along. It's a testament. Again, it's a heavy lift, and our team does a lot, but we talk a lot about we're one sports center. It doesn't matter if we're the sports center department, if we're the food and beverage department, if we're the parks maintenance department, like we are one sports center. That's what people experience. And so how can we work together and continue to drive that forward?
Well, I would agree with everything that Vicki said. And so congratulations to you and your staff. Because it's true. We were very concerned when we went down this road first and then figured out how, we're gonna have to figure out how to do it. But to Vicki's point, you not only got to figure out how to turn lights on every day, but figure out creatively how to figure out how to utilize this place more often and creatively, right? Like different ways. And so thank you. And if you could ever send us those slides, that would be awesome, because those numbers are awesome. So thank you.
Very good. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kaylee. Appreciate it. No action on that one. We'll move to the 2027 budget review. Brock Leeds.
Good evening, President Rosted and Commissioners. So this is the time of year where we continue to bring you updates on the budget building process for the next fiscal year. Building the budget really is a process. It's not a lot different from a construction project. And we start this process early in the year. We did a lot of training with departments, and we try to bring to you updates on a regular basis. We brought you this update, or part of this update, at the Planning Committee meeting in July, and we will be bringing you a much deeper dive into all the particulars of the budget in the August planning meeting, which will also bring you a balanced budget for your review in preparation for September and our budget hearing. So tonight is just an opportunity to kind of walk through the next stages in the building blocks of the budget and answer any questions that you might have. So first of all, we know that we've got a multiple funding sources in public sectors, and for us, our largest percentage of our funding comes from our property tax. And we, as a taxing entity, we do approve a mill levy each year to support the operations. And in the 2027 budget, these are kind of the assumptions we're making as we build the budget. We've got a goal of keeping the mill levy flat, and we'll be talking to you more about that at planning. And the projection right now shows an increase of about $1.1 million in tax revenue. And that is a combination of both new growth in the city of Fargo, as well as valuation increases that are set by the city assessor's office. One of the things we thought we should do is kind of give you a broader explanation of the property tax legislation that passed in the last legislative session and the logistics of how that works. So I think our next slide has that information. So here we go. So before we kick this off, one of the questions I think we had at planning is, in the current projection from the city assessor's office, their annual report, it shows new growth at 2.77% and valuation increase at, I think, 0.78, right? So the way the legislation works is that taxing entities can receive a maximum of 3% cap plus new growth. So one might say 3% plus the 277 growth means we can get 5.77. And I would say yes, but. So there's a lot that goes into the calculation of how you determine what your growth is. And we're planning for the 2027 budget. We're in the current year of 26, but all of the tax calculations are based on the prior year closed tax collection. So 25, 24, 23. So how this works, and we determine, what is our cap and how can we grow. You determine what is your base year, and you get, as a taxing entity, the highest tax collection of the 3 previous years. So we take a look at what is our total taxes that we collected. And those total taxes include our general fund mill, our debt service mill, as well as our, what we have for facilities and parks and facilities mill. So in order to determine your base year, that cap only applies to your general fund. And so you take your total taxes collected, subtract out any mills you have for debt service, and you get the general fund portion, which is the bold portion there, 22.4 million, 21 million, and 18.2 million over the last 3 years. So your base levy is the highest of the previous 3 years. So that puts our base levy at 22,467,000. So that's the start of the process. Then you take a look at what happened in the prior year. So the 22.7, that's our base year. Last year, which then affects our current operating year, a single mill was worth $882,000. So total taxable valuation in the entire city of Fargo is $882,475,566. Then there's a calculation to get the mill rate. The mill rate is just a pure math problem of how much did you collect versus what it was worth. But then you start to look at what is our current year situation? What are they projecting for 26 in the current year? Total property valuation of new property in the current year is 20,344,000. Then you start to determine taxes that have either been TIFs, so tax increment financing that the city's involved with in trying to attract new projects to town. If there are any of those that are out there that have expired, you get to add those back in. Any exempt properties, you know that in the real estate market, a lot of times you buy a new home or build a new home, you get maybe a 5-year exemption or a 50% exemption for 5 years, whatever the case may be. So if you have any exempted properties that have those, you get to add those back in. There was $3.7 million of those properties that get to add back into that valuation. And then you have to remove any properties that came off the tax rolls. So if for whatever reason, properties came off the tax rolls, they no longer exist, they were sold to a non-taxing entity, whatever the case may be. So you take the 20 million, add back in TIFs. We had none of those that expired this year. You add back in exempt properties of 3.7, subtract out the 5.8, and you come up with a total taxable valuation of 18.2 million. So what you see is it went down in 2026. That is different from what happened in 25, where we had a roughly $10 million of TIF come back, where we got to add that back in. So it changed. So now you get the benefit of the highest year. All right. So allow for new growth is the 465,000, and you get to choose your base year, which is 18.2 plus the growth, or your prior year, which is the higher 22.4 plus the growth. And because we're in a growth city, we get to take advantage of the new base year. So our adjusted levy in the calculation by legislation is 22,933,000, because that is higher than what's currently happening in the current year of 2026. Next slide then shows, okay, so now you've determined what your new base is. Then you get the 3% growth on top of that. So it's the 22.9 plus the 3%. Gives you an allowable additional dollars that you can collect of 687,991. So that gives us the allowable amount, which we are building into our budget of the 23,621,033. Okay. Now you take a look at that and you say, okay, you now get the maximum amount of either that amount or the prior year base. And so that was the 22.9 or the 23.6. We get to have the 23.6 because that's the higher of the two. And so that's our new base year that we are building on for the 2027 budget. That comes out to just under 5%. So what you thought could be 577, once you do all the math with those properties coming back on, other properties coming off, establishing your new base year, you come out at, like 497 rather than 577. So there's a lot of work to get to the number. And I think a lot of people just think 3% plus new growth. If you're in a growth city, you get to add those up, and that's the maximum. And you really have to go through a process to determine what other values and properties are out there that you get to add into that. And then the final piece of this, if you remember from the legislation, is if you don't take all of the 3%, you can carry that forward into prior years. Well, in the current budget of 2026, we maximized the growth. We took all of the 3% plus the growth, so we had 0 to carry forward. Our philosophy for the 27 budget is exactly the same. We're going to try to maximize what is allowable for us to take. And we can do that by still keeping the mill levy flat. And so we don't have to raise taxes in order to still maximize what that growth is. And our benefit is really being in a growth city. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm working with colleagues throughout the state that are not in growth cities that are struggling with as they go through this because they can't even capture the total amount because it's not available to them. So we are going to try to maximize what that is, which means when we do this a year from now, we won't have anything to carry forward either. Had we not maximized it, maybe we took 2%, we'd had 1%, we could have gotten 4. We've taken the approach that we're going to maximize that each year. And so that's a little, as quick a lesson as I can give you in the calculation of how to determine the cap plus the growth. And there will be a quiz on this in the future, so make sure that you're paying attention. Dr. Joe, I know you love the math, so it's good. But it's a good process, and we've been very fortunate, and we're appreciative of our partners at the city that when you're in a growth area, it's very important and it's very helpful.
Well, I might have been the one who asked for this, so you're welcome, Joe. But I really do appreciate it because we are navigating fairly new waters here, and to be able to see how this actually works and understand it play by play is beneficial because the public wants to know too and is curious how this works for us.
Correct.
So I appreciate you taking the time to give us the opportunity to get at least a C passing grade when you bring the quiz to the next meeting.
Sure.
So thank you, Brock. And,
Absolutely.
and your staff, obviously, whoever
Yes.
helped put all this together for us.
Absolutely. The next funding source we have is charge for services, and that's a pretty significant portion of what we do. We've got a number of entities where the public pays for the services we provide. In the 2027 budget, we're estimating approximately a $250,000 increase in the services that we provide that we charge for. You did approve the fees at a previous meeting, and so we've now worked with our departments to calculate in the growth of usage, et cetera, and then work that into our budget. So we're estimating about a $250,000 increase in revenue there. Intergovernmental revenue, this is the piece that we get as a pass-through from the state through the city of Fargo. So the park districts do not get state aid, but we do in partnership with the cities. We get to share in that state aid, and we receive 30% of the state aid that comes through the city. In working with the finance director over there, they are projecting their state aid to be flat with all of the things that are going on throughout the state. And so for now, we have projected the same flat revenue for intergovernmental from state. That's approximately $4.3 million a year. And then investment income, we are building the 2027 budget with a minor reduction in investment income. And I think this is what you've heard from our audit partners through the years, that as we were preparing and saving dollars and had larger fund balances to prepare for our capital projects, we had excess cash that had a purpose. That purpose is now coming to fruition, so our cash is going down. Therefore, those dollars we have invested are fewer, and we'll see our investment income start to normalize a little bit back to probably the 2022, 2023 area, just because of the amount of cash that we have. So we're building a budget with a slight decrease in that regard as well. Any questions on the revenue side assumptions for now? All right, so on the expense side, what types of things are we building in to work through our budget? Comp and benefits is certainly one of the larger pieces of what we do in the organization. And so for now, we currently have a placeholder in the compensation of a 4.5% increase. And that is take our total salaries and take that times 4.5%. We are still finalizing a breakdown, which we'll bring to you at the planning meeting. How much of that will be across the board versus merit. We've taken a look at some comparisons with other taxing entities locally as well as park districts, and we'll share all those details with you in a deeper dive at planning. You may recall we also, our HR department did a market study for those positions that we feel maybe our market is a little lower, and we've built in an amount to be able to address market issues, and HR director is going to give you a further detailed look at that at the planning committee meeting as well. We also have in the current budget, we've built in one new position, but it is not a new headcount. We had some addition by subtraction where we had a department that had some turnover that we've realigned and did not fill a position, but we did some realignment of duties and internal promotions, and then turned around and are looking to add a position in information technology. So there will be a head count that is similar, and we've realigned those dollars, and that's figured into our budget as well. Health insurance right now, we have approximately a 10% increase in the health insurance. You may recall that we have a self-funded health plan, so we have a lot of latitude in how we set these rates. We do work with a consultant that does some actuarial work with us so that we can compare to what Blue Cross Blue Shield suggests we should do. And right now we think about 10% is where we're going to end up. We're still working with that in the balancing process, and we'll bring that to you as well. And then we work with our partners locally, Cass County Electric and Excel Energy, and we're estimating about a 3% increase in overall utility costs throughout the Park District. That's built into the budget as well. So those are kind of the assumptions on the expense side that help us build what's happening in 2027. And the other piece of what we do is we have the CIP process, capital improvement plans, that we've talked to you about throughout the course of developing that process. We have 4 projects identified for for next year, 2027, that we're planning for. That is $2.6 million, and those projects are new lighting at Jack Williams Stadium, some work with the Southwest Regional Pond just to the west of us here, a project and a partnership we do with the city, and some work that we've kind of pre-committed to that's starting to now come to fruition. We have phase 1 of the Edgewood irrigation project. We're working through the logistics of replacing irrigation that may in fact be original. I'm saying that I think it very possibly is true. And we're doing some work in 27 to kind of prepare for, I think, trying to finish that project in 28, but we'll kind of see when a contractor can get to it and things of that nature. And then we're working in partnership with a group that is looking at doing turf at Theraldson Little League as well. So we've identified through our general fund, we do internal transfers as well as some transfers out of a capital budgets of various departments to fund the $2.6 million of ongoing new project work through the process as well. So those are recommendations we have, and obviously until you get to see the totality of the whole budget and it's balanced and we bring to you that in fact we can make these things work and you give your blessing. These are just the things that are currently on the table as we're working through the process. And that might be my last slide. Yes, that is my last slide. As I said before, this is kind of just the next step. Some of these are placeholders and assumptions, but we will be bringing you a much broader presentation at the Planning Committee and the September board meeting to really get into all the departments where we've seen specific increases and decreases. And so then you can see a much more complex look at what it looks like. So any questions at this point, as we are working through the balancing process, things that we should be taking back to the drawing board, or any questions you might have revenue or expense wise?
Anybody? Questions? Very good. 2 comprehensive reports in a row. Thanks,
Thank
Brock.
you.
See you next month. Moving on, agenda item 6, approval of park board committee assignments. It's on the president of the board to divvy up the assignments. We've got 4 groups: planning committee, governance, Fargo Youth Initiative. We have a person that's assigned to that group, and the park board foundation. On the planning committee, after some conversations, Commissioner Absey is going to serve as the committee chair of the planning group. And then Commissioner Dawson and Commissioner Deutsch will serve as well on the planning committee. Governance, I will serve as the committee chair, and Emily Secor May, Commissioner May, Secor May will be on the governance group. Fargo Youth Initiative, that position was first started, what, a year ago or so, year and a half, Zoe? January. So Commissioner Absey was appointed to represent the Park District on the Fargo Youth Commission Initiative, and she will continue in that role. And then lastly, the Park Board Foundation. Typically, the Park Board Foundation has a board member rep on the foundation, and it's typically been the president of the board, so that'll be myself. I guess we need to move and approve these appointments unless we have further conversation.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional comments on this? Very good, Jeff, pull the board. Oh, all in favor of the committee assignments as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, it passes. Last, item 7 on the agenda, Planning Committee update, Commissioner Absey present.
Yes, many of the things we talked about at the program, the planning committee, were on the agenda, but the consideration of Covey Ranch Developers Agreement, which Tyler presented today, we chatted about for quite a while. Consideration of Riverwood Park Stormwater Outlet Project repairs with Tony was on the consent agenda. Just repairing an outlet that was needed some help. And then we talked about the Goose Johnson Partner Appreciation Event. It's a longstanding golf tournament held at Rose Creek. And so this year transitioning to an appreciation event at the Sports Center to showcase this beautiful space, along with being more inclusive, maybe getting more diverse communities to partake in this event that's honoring our former leader, Goose Johnson. And then Mr. Leitz came to present the budget review, 2027 budget review. Much of what he talked about today, we chatted through as well. Along with talking through foundation self-funding path, what that looks like. Currently, Park District contributes to the foundation, but hoping that the foundation is fully self-funded by 2030. And lastly, we talked through the process of committee assignments and the meeting cadence for the Park Board.
Questions for Commissioner Absey? All right. Moving on, item 8 is adjournment. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they want to bring up before we adjourn? All right, I'll move to adjourn the meeting.